Hey guys, this is Joelle from FromScratchFarmstead.com, and for years I was vigilant about eating a non-fat, low-fat diet, right? I had non-stick pans that I sprayed with Pam or maybe that aerosol olive oil spray stuff, and yeah, I was just really conscious about that. But then we switched to this real food homesteading lifestyle, and all of a sudden my non-stick pans were gone, spraying with Pam was gone, and we have made the switch to cooking with lard being our primary fat of choice for cooking. And so let's talk about how to cook with lard, why to cook with lard, and how you can render it at home. So what is lard? Lard is the fat from a pig. And so there are different kinds of lard. You'll often hear the terms like back fat or leaf lard. And so what those are just depends on where the fat is coming from the animal. And so back fat tends to come from more of the back, the butt, some of these other areas, and the leaf lard, which is what we're working with here today, tends to be the most prized fat, and that comes from a leaf-shaped portion of fat that surrounds the kidney of the animal. And so the reason that leaf lard is considered kind of the prized fat is just because of its really smooth, creamy texture and how it really is excellent in baking and how it makes for those really fluffy biscuits and the flaky pie crusts. That's why people love leaf lard. But back fat from back lard from pigs is awesome too, and that is also great for roasting and stir frying and using for all those other applications. So either way you go is great. We're going to be using leaf lard today. So why do we love cooking with lard? Okay, so there are a few reasons here. Lard is awesome because it is extremely heat stable, meaning that you can heat it to really high temperatures without it denaturing or getting oxidized, which is known to be a cancer-causing thing. When fat is oxidized and causes free radicals, it can be a cancer-causing agent. But lard can be heated to really high temperatures, so it's great for frying, pan frying, roasting at high temperatures without it denaturing and causing those free radicals. And so that's one of the big reasons that we love cooking with lard. It is also just extremely stable, right? So you think lard has been this traditional fat for hundreds and hundreds of years. People had it before refrigeration and it preserved. And actually people even use lard to coat meat, to preserve meat, which is where the term larder comes from. And so lard is just extremely versatile for a lot of those reasons. What about the nutritional aspect of lard, right? So for the last 100 or so years, lard has gotten a really bad rap of being this really gross, unhealthy, artery clogging fat. So why are we using it? I'm sure if you're watching this, maybe your mind has been changed, but there's been a lot of negative advertising around lard for the last 100 or so years since the development of Crisco and hydrogenated vegetable oils, cottonseed oil, soybean oil, things like that. And so all of the latest research is showing that in fact, those oils tend to cause more of the problems, and traditional cooking fats like lard actually can be really beneficial. So to just get a little bit into the science here, I'm not going to go into the weeds, but to just give you a really brief overview, and you can skip to the next chapter if you want to miss this. But so cholesterol is really important in the body, right? Cholesterol is the thing that actually reduces inflammation. That's the purpose of cholesterol. And so your body is going to make cholesterol regardless of whether or not you are consuming it in your diet. Because if there's inflammation in your body needs to tone down that inflammation. So it's going to make cholesterol to tone it down. So lard contains cholesterol naturally in the saturated fat in the lard. So the problem can come in what type of cholesterol is being sent. So you have your high density lipoproteins and your low density lipoproteins and your very low density lipoproteins, which are like the really dense little ones. And those are the ones that are known as bad cholesterol. So those are the ones that you want to avoid. Those are the things that clog arteries, are the culprit for heart attacks and things like that. But lard actually increases your high density lipoprotein, also known as the good cholesterol. And so it can be an anti-inflammatory food. It increases your good cholesterol and not your bad cholesterol. So yeah, a lot of the evidence about lard being bad, Crisco and hydrogenated vegetable oils being good has been debunked. And so it's just a matter of changing kind of this narrative that's been created for many, many years of thinking that lard is a gross fat and should not be used, because in our opinion, lard is prized and we love to use it. And that's what people have been using for so many centuries prior to the last 100 years. So another big reason we love lard is not only because it's stable at high temperatures, but it's also just really tasty in cooking. So it's a neutral fat, meaning it doesn't give off a strong odor. It's not like you don't taste like you're eating pork chops when you're cooking with lard. It has a very neutral flavor, which is why it's also really, really great for baking, because you don't taste that porky sort of flavor in it. It's just very neutral and just causes your baked goods to be flaky and delicious. And then kind of the last reason, and this is probably really the one that put us over the edge with making lard be like our primary cooking fat, especially at the beginning several years ago, is because lard can just be accessed in abundance for really low prices. So if you go and shop at your local farm, talk to your farmer, most likely they're gonna have extra lard just sitting around, or sometimes I've even heard of them not even requesting lard from the butcher because they don't have a market for it, because people aren't buying it. And so that means it's readily available, and they often sell it or even give it away sometimes for hardly anything. And so you can get several pounds of lard often for even just a few dollars, which can make your cooking fat for a month just for a few dollars for this really, really helpful fat. And so that is why we love it. Another caveat with lard is you want to make sure your sourcing of lard is good, because toxins tend to store in the fat tissue. And so if we are getting lard from unhealthy animals fed an unhealthy diet, then those toxins from whatever they ate, whatever junk was put in their body, is going to store in the lard, and that's going to be passed on to you. So we want to avoid that. So you want to make sure you're working with farms that have good practices, the pigs are raised in good conditions, ideally able to forage and outdoors, and not given antibiotics and things like that, and raised in really good conditions. So something to keep in mind when you're buying pork lard. All right, so how do you make it? It's actually super simple. All you're gonna do is you're gonna take your lard, and you can use back fat or you can use leaf lard, whatever you have. Ours comes in little packages like this. We've also have gotten it in the past in like these really ginormous bags, actually with the skin on. And so when it comes that way, it's a little bit more of a pain because you do need to take that skin off. The skin is gonna be really tough, really chewy. You don't want to eat it. It's not really edible. So you need to take that off. So that's a little bit more of a pain if yours comes that way, but it's totally doable. We've done it a ton of times. But you're just gonna take your leaf lard, you're gonna open it, and then you're gonna cut it in little cubes. So I like to cut it in like 1/2 inch to inch size little cubes. And once your lard is all cut up, you're gonna put it in a large, some sort of stock pot, heavy bottomed pot. And then you're gonna put it on the stove at a low temperature for a couple of hours. So you're gonna cut up your lard, put it in your pot, and you're just gonna let it sit on your stove and let it simmer for 2 to 3 hours. And so the purpose of that is you just want all of that fat, when it's heated, it's gonna melt down. You don't wanna put it on too high of a temperature because that can burn your lard, and you don't wanna do that. That will create an off-putting, bad color, make the lard not as healthy, and just not be nearly as appetizing. So keep it on a low heat and just let it simmer for a few hours until all of that lard is melted. If you let it go too long too, you might start to notice you're getting more of a porky flavor in your lard. So you want to stop it before you get to that point. You can also do this in a slow cooker. You can put it on low in a slow cooker for a few hours, and it'll do the same thing. It'll melt that lard for you. I've just found that I prefer to do it on the stove. It's easier to monitor. I just find it easier to do it that way. And that's it. And so after your lard is done rendering, when all of the fat has been melted, you'll be left with these little chunks, and they call those cracklings. And they are another one of our huge reasons why we love to make lard, because the cracklings are delicious. And so make sure you save those. So you're gonna strain out your cracklings from your lard. So just get a fine mesh strainer, strain out your lard, pour them into mason jars and let them cool. And then take your cracklings. I just store them in the fridge. They'll keep in the fridge for a couple weeks. And then I like to add, my favorite way to use cracklings is to just stir fry them in with vegetables, like cook up some greens with them and add some vegetables to them, and it is, it's my favorite part of making lard probably, because they're so yummy. So that's it. That's all you do to make lard, is you're gonna take that lard, pour it into jars, let it cool, and then store it in your fridge. It will do well in a cool place like a root cellar for many, many months. We just tend to have a little extra room in our fridge, so we just like to keep it in there, and we go through it relatively quickly so it doesn't hang around too long. But it will store for really probably more than a year if you let it sit for that long. It turns from this clear color to like a white color in your fridge as it cools and hardens, and it becomes a very soft, spoonable fat, not hard and waxy. So if you cook with a tallow is made from beef fat, and that is gonna be more hard, more waxy, and not as easy to cook with in our opinion. But lard is just really soft, almost has this buttery sort of texture, and just perfect for roasting, baking, stir frying, any application you can think of. So that's how you render lard. Go try it, go make it, go buy some from your farmer, and let us know what you think in the comments. Do you use lard in your cooking? What do you like to use it for? Drop it below and let us know. So thanks so much for stopping by the farmstead today, and we'll see you next time.